Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the pretty incredible story of a guy who used a dead simple 2-hour morning system to completely flip his life from absolute poverty to massive success. Seriously, if you've ever felt like you're working ridiculously hard just to, tread water and stay exactly where you are, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention to the blueprint we're unpacking today. Let's kick things off with a man who is just stuck.
So, we start out by looking at Thomas. He's a 32-year-old night security guard. This guy was working from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. every single night and walking 4 miles just to get to his shift. Imagine coming home to a tiny, one-room apartment, a broken fan, sleeping on a mattress on the floor under this annoying flickering light bulb, wearing shoes with holes right through the soles. Every morning, exhausted on his walk home, he'd watch families waking up, eating breakfast, stepping out to actually live their lives. And he kept asking himself this heavy question: will this be my life forever?
Now, Thomas's routine was just this endless, grueling loop of surviving. He was sleeping from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. He was working incredibly hard, but it literally felt like he was living life in reverse. Because think about it, while he was asleep through the daylight hours, the rest of the waking world was out there living, learning, building their futures. He desperately wanted to learn new skills, but man, after working all night, his tank was just completely empty.
Section 1. Trapped in survival mode. His breaking point finally arrived on a freezing Tuesday in November with one of those terrifying phone calls nobody ever wants to get. His mom had collapsed back in her rural village. She fainted simply from being way too tired and way too stressed. So he takes this frantic 3-hour bus ride to the clinic, and he just sits there listening to her plead from her hospital bed, begging him not to waste his life struggling the exact same way she had. Looking at her weathered hands, hands that had worked the fields for literally decades with nothing to show for it, Thomas just felt this huge surge of anger at his own helplessness. Stepping out into the quiet dawn at exactly 5 a.m., he looks at the sleeping village and makes a vow. He was going to find a way out.
Section 2. The 5 a.m. revelation.
And, that vow at the clinic led to this wild moment of serendipity. On the bus ride back to town, Thomas ends up sitting across from a sharp-looking, successful local businessman named Mr. Chun. The guy's just casually reading a book. But what shocked Thomas wasn't really the man himself, it was the clock. It was 6 a.m. When Thomas asked him why on earth he was awake so early, Mr. Chun diagnosed the problem instantly. He said, "You are asleep when the world works, and awake when the world sleeps." That's when he introduced Thomas to the concept of the magic hours between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. It's this totally distraction-free window where you can actually build your life while the rest of the world is still dreaming.
So to make this work, Mr. Chun told Thomas he had to flip his entire sleep schedule. The plan? Sleep right after work, wake up at 11:30 a.m., and most importantly, and this is the key, eventually train himself to wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. Now, using just 2 extra hours a morning might not sound like a massive, earth-shattering shift right off the bat, but let's compound it. 2 hours a day adds up to 14 hours a week. That's 60 hours a month, and over a year, that is a staggering 730 hours. Seriously, when you actually do the math on that, 730 hours is exactly 91 standard 8-hour workdays. Let that sink in. By simply claiming those early morning hours, you are essentially getting 3 full extra months every single year. That is 3 completely uninterrupted months to build your foundation, all while everyone else is literally unconscious. Crazy, right?
Section 3. The 2-hour foundation.
Thomas was so pumped up by this, he actually called Mr. Chun to meet up at a cafe. Right there at the table, Mr. Chun sketches out a literal blueprint. He compared Thomas's current life to a crumbling house completely missing its foundation. So the strategy for these magic morning hours is incredibly specific. Hour 1, from 5 to 6 a.m., is strictly for building a skill that directly changes your finances. We're talking learning a language, a trade, or in Thomas's case, accounting. Absolutely no TV, no doom scrolling. Hour 2, from 6 to 7 a.m., that's for the body and mind. So 30 minutes of exercise to maintain your physical vehicle, followed by 30 minutes of reading and planning out your day.
But look, an ambitious timeline is completely useless without discipline, right? To make this system actually work, Mr. Chun established 3 brutal, non-negotiable rules. Rule number 1, you cannot negotiate with the alarm. You wake up at 5 a.m. every day, yes, even on weekends. Second rule, you must be asleep by 9 p.m. You simply cannot cheat your body out of rest and expect to succeed. And the third rule is just a harsh truth. The first week will be absolute hell. Your body is going to hate you. Your bed will feel like a giant magnet pulling you back. But you've got to push through 21 days just for the habit to form and 90 days for it to actually become who you are. Because at the end of the day, success only goes to the people who show up when it's hard.
Section 4. The 90-Day Transformation.
So Thomas accepts this 90-day challenge, but man, his resolve was immediately put to the test when that alarm screamed in the pitch black the very next morning. That first step was pure agony. He dragged himself out of bed, squinting at free Excel and accounting tutorials on YouTube while his eyes literally burned from exhaustion. But he kept going, and by day 20, the magic finally happened. His body adapted. He found himself naturally waking up at 4:58 a.m., feeling clarity instead of, well, anger. The spreadsheet formula started clicking. By month 3, he actually took these self-taught skills and built a fully functional inventory spreadsheet for his warehouse, completely solving a massive problem his company had been struggling with for years.
The results from this were just rapid and absolutely undeniable. Word of his new spreadsheet traveled fast, from the supervisor to the manager and eventually all the way up to the owner. On day 87, just 3 days shy of his 90-day goal, management called him in. They offered him a day shift office job, doubled his salary right there on the spot, and allowed him to finally leave those night guard duties behind. And the best part? Because of this, he was soon able to move his mom into a much better apartment in town so she could finally get the proper medical care she needed. Fast forward a year later, and Thomas had actually worked his way up to become the company's lead accountant. But here is, to me, the most fascinating part of the whole story. He still woke up at 5 a.m. every single morning. When his coworkers inevitably asked him why he kept putting himself through it even after he'd made it, his answer basically became his lifelong identity. He said, "Success is not a destination. It is a daily practice."
Section 5. Your Daily Practice Challenge.
The real fundamental lesson here isn't about getting lucky, and it's certainly not about just working yourself to the bone. It's about how you use your time while everyone else is sleeping. Because when the world is quiet, your willpower is at its absolute peak. So we're turning Mr. Chun's challenge right over to you, with a roadmap you can literally start tonight. Step 1. Set your alarm for exactly 5 a.m. Not 5:15, not 5:30, 5 a.m. And put that phone across the room so you physically have to stand up to turn it off. Step 2. Choose just one specific thing to build in that first hour. It could be a new skill, a business idea, a certification. Whatever it is, commit to it for 90 days. And step 3, you have got to ruthlessly protect your 9 p.m. bedtime. Sleep is not your enemy here, but endless late-night scrolling absolutely is.
Look, Thomas started with absolutely nothing. No degree, no money, no fancy connections. He just had a choice. You, watching this, you've got the tools, you've got the internet, and the opportunity is sitting right in front of you. So really, the only question left to answer is this. Tomorrow morning, are you going to take control of your foundation and actually build the life you want? Or are you just going to hit snooze and go back to sleep? Think about it. See you next time.